Okay, so my disability was hearing loss. So, to start off, the definition of hearing loss is students who have a permanent or fluctuating hearing loss that adversity affects a child's educational performance. So, that is IDEA's definition is that a hearing impairment is a permanent or fluctuating hearing loss that affects so anything that starts to affect the educational perspective. So, to start off, students, according to the University of North Georgia, students who are hard of hearing rely on visuals when communicating. So that is just one of the many accommodations that are talked about through this disability is that they rely a lot on visuals. So here's another example. It says students who are hard of hearing can be completely deaf or partially deaf. So every kid is different. It's like every kid with a disability is not going to be the same. So some of them might be partially deaf, some of them may be completely deaf, some may just be deaf in one ear. It just depends. And it also includes the use of hearing aids. So, and then this was the quote that I stated earlier. So for teachers, it's very important to stay educated on how to make students feel comfortable in the learning space. And also, teachers having these types of skills can really benefit them in the classroom moving forward because each year teachers are going to have a different amount of students and it's never going to be the same. Like, students are never going to be the same. You're going to have students with different disabilities. You might have students with no disabilities at all. You just have to be prepared for all of that. So, you by having these skills, you are giving kids an equal access to education. You're expanding your own skill set so you know how to deal with multiple different levels of disabilities. You're including all the students and you're making a difference in their lives by being empathetic towards them. According to an article in How Teacher Preparation Programs Can Help, it states that 73% of elementary school teachers are required to take at least one course that's dedicated to supporting students with disabilities. And I think that's really amazing that they're doing that because it really is so important. And I feel like a lot of people don't think about that when they go into teaching. So, back to the disability itself. What causes a student to be hard of hearing? So, it can fluctuate as well. Like, some students can be born with it. It can be caused from injuries, medications, genetics. There's just so many different reasons and so many different ways that a student could have this disability. So, according to the March of Dimes, 3 in every, I think, 1,000 babies are born with some type of hearing loss. So, it may be more common in some places, but overall it's not very common to have to have a baby that has a hearing loss issue, but it's still a possibility, so you still have to be prepared for that. So going into some of the accommodations, we have explaining instruction to them while facing them. That's a really big one because I feel like when you are facing someone, it's a lot easier to hear them and it's a lot easier to read their lips because some kids may read lips and some may not. You just have to, again, prepare for all of these potential things. Another one is pausing during lessons. That's another big one. You want to make sure that you're evenly pausing, allowing the student to catch up, and also pausing to double check in with them to make sure that they're doing okay. And this also goes along with talking slow and steady. You want to make sure that you have an even tone so that it's easier for them to understand you and you're not talking and going through the lesson super quickly. Because some teachers do that and it may be fine for some students, but some kids, especially the ones with disabilities, may find that really difficult to catch on to. So, just some other accommodations include providing extra seating or seating accommodations for the students, like putting them in the front of the room so that they can hear you. Obviously, if you put a kid who's hard of hearing in the back of the room, they're not going to hear you as well. So that's very important that they sit in the front, as well as potentially allowing hearing devices in the classroom. So that can be anywhere from like apps on an iPad, or when I was in elementary school, they had like teachers would have a microphone around their neck and it would be connected to the students' hearing aids. So that can be one of them. Or there's so many different apps out there that a student could have on an iPad or computer where either one of them can provide an ASL learning app, and the other one that I saw was you record the lesson and then the lesson will play back to you in words so you can go back and read it later and take notes. So they can take that home and then read their notes and also take notes at the same time if they missed certain parts of the lesson. So now into peer facilitation. I feel like peer facilitation is really important with students with disabilities. So, according to Nationwide Children's Teaching, it may be hard for a child with hearing loss to take notes while listening, and that's because it's hard to watch the teacher's face and take notes at the same time. So, I think having a peer for this would be really helpful with students with disabilities. The peer can either take notes or listen for them and give them extra points like, hey, the teacher said this. Like, you may want to write this down. Like, I feel like having a peer for these students would really help. It may help some, it may not. It just, as long as it helps one student, that would really be beneficial. So, again, yes, peers can help with this. Visual and speech cues are hard to do at the same time. And then going into, my slides aren't working. Okay. Going into language activities. So, any type of activities that you can provide them is very important for engagement. So, according to this language activities article, it says choose simple books where characters have little dialogue. So, that's just an example of, again, it's easier for them to see things rather than to read them or have to listen for them. So, an example that this article gave was that a student could read a book and then they could create a role play using those characters that they saw in the picture. So, for example, if you would give them a picture book that doesn't really have words, then they could use those characters and kind of create their own story using those pictures. And another language activity, art is always a great way for kids to show their creativity. All kids, even if they don't have a disability, can relate to art and really love doing art. So I think art is a universal thing that the teacher can do to include all the students, no matter if they have a disability or not. And then another example of language activities that they could do, for example, would be charades with vocab words, would be something that could include everybody. So going into my references, and then here are the accommodation videos. Okay. And then the second one is right here. Okay. So then going into my like quick review of my handout. It just basically summarizes kind of the same points that I made throughout the slideshow. It talks about the reasons why a student may be hard of hearing. It gives the definition, and then it gives how, like, accommodations and language activities. So it's essentially everything that was in the original slideshow. But I also just wanted to touch on how important it is for teachers to have these skills to teach in the classroom, because it really will benefit all students for the teacher to know and understand how to deal with all these different disabilities.